Welcome back to Old School Sports and our Out of the Park Baseball 26 series, Rescue the Rockies. And it is International Free Agent Signing Day, at least the beginning of that signing period here in the 2028 to 2029 off season. And we've got a very interesting decision or decisions ahead of us. Given the success we've had on the field over the past few years, we've got $5.23 million to spend here this year with the Rockies, but there are several teams that can easily outbid us if we decide to go for the highest end players that are available. It's also a year where I don't have an incredibly strong opinion on which direction to go. And honestly, neither does the worldwide scouting department. Appreciate all the input over the last couple of days in which direction to possibly grow in this IAFA period. But we've had 8 different players who were ranked number 1 by various members of the worldwide scouting department. And unlike many years when we use that valuable resource to help guide us to a hopefully better decision in the IAFA period or the draft, there's not really one dominant player who's the clear favorite. So it's going to be a real interesting decision for me this year. Before we go through the top IAFA prospects, though, I wanted to respond to a recent comment from Peter Hooper and check in on what Ryan Feltner did last season. You may remember him as the pitcher who, despite very mediocre looking ratings, had been incredibly effective for us in Colorado, winning 11 games in each of the first 3 years of this playthrough. We moved on from him this past off season as he was getting more expensive, and he ended up with the Mets, where he had a 7-10 record and a 4.25 earned run average. So not necessarily as effective as he had been with us, but still a useful major league pitcher. Interestingly, though, his WAR of 0.8 was by far the lowest of the 4 years of this playthrough, and honestly was even lower than what he did in Chicago or Colorado back in 2024. So it certainly seems like he's trending in a somewhat more negative direction, but still was useful and arguably may have been better in Colorado, since for whatever reason he had been relatively effective for us. He is still on the free agent market right now, looking for 2 years at $8 million a pop, given where we are in terms of our financial situation right now. Just not a realistic option to go after him. Don't really want to trade away any players who are still making some money on this team, because I feel like we're in decent shape with a lot of the guys that are returning next year. And also we've just moved on from Feltner at this point, so wish him luck with wherever he ends up for this upcoming 2029 season, but it will likely not be with us unless he lingers on the market much longer and his price continues to come down. So as I mentioned, there's 8 players who received some level of interest at the highest end from the worldwide scouting department. We'll start with a couple of pitchers. Mentioned Mike Perez last episode with a $1.3 million request. We thought he might be an interesting guy to supplement in if we look for multiple players this year. Perez is the choice of NS1 CLRK and the Rickety Bridge. Like the high baseball IQ and the low financial ambition, I think he can add about 5 miles to his fastball from where he is today. Ultimately see him being a 3-pitch pitcher. Average stuff, slightly above average movement, and slightly above average control if everything goes well. And clearly a guy whose skills could potentially be improved with some good luck in the development lab or just general coaching development in the coming years. Jose Ramirez, slightly higher end prospect and slightly more popular with the worldwide scouting department. Wyoming 943, Dog Massa, and Undercover Boomer all had the Walking Man, which some noted was not necessarily the greatest name for a pitcher, at the top of their lists. The negative is the low baseball IQ. Certainly think his potential three-pitch arsenal is higher end than Perez. Nice stamina, good at holding on runners. We think the control could be extraordinary, but obviously a long way to go to get there. Stuff in movement more average-ish to slightly above if he reaches his full potential. Think the right-hander could throw close to 100 miles an hour, but with a $2.8 million demand, he's a guy who is certainly more expensive than Mr. Perez. And there's also, there are 6 position players who were recommended by the scouting reports we received from the WWSD over the past few days. One wasn't even someone we had scouted up all that aggressively. That's the center fielder, Victor Maraquin. He was Christian Wilson's choice. Pretty well-balanced bat. We think the contact could be above average, eye could be above average, and the home run power could be borderline outstanding. Speed, pretty average for the 17-year-old out of Venezuela. The outfield range is good, although his error and arm ratings are not exceptional. Looks like probably a left fielder when all was said and done. And if he is able to reach that full power potential with good contact and good eye, Tweet Maraquin could certainly be an interesting player for us to consider. Another guy who was supported by one member of the worldwide scouting department, the shortstop Jose Steeple Valdivia. He was the choice of John Sula. Really like the defensive potential here. Does have extreme development risk. The high adaptability should probably help him as tries to learn new positions and hopefully develop. Like the durability, the home run power, similar to Maraquin, could be outstanding. Could also have a very similar eye to Maraquin. The contact not necessarily quite as good, but if Valdivia does reach his full potential, I think he could certainly be an interesting player to consider. Didn't touch on this, but Maraquin looking for $2.2 million. Valdivia somewhat more expensive, $3.2 million for him. Jordan Delgado, a right fielder, also supported by one member of the worldwide scouting department, Nelson. Another guy with somewhat average speed. Looks like a corner outfield type and not necessarily an incredibly proficient one defensively. Do like the high leadership. Other players look up to him. Type of bat that we've had a decent amount of in recent drafts. Potentially outstanding contact and gap power. The home run power in the eye a little more average, even if he reaches his full potential. A little disappointing in that that great potential gap power with Delgado will be wasted a bit given his slightly below average speed. Still an interesting profile, left-handed hitter. My thought is we've got so many outfielders in the organization, and honestly a fair amount of outfielders who are kind of high contact, high gap power, high speed with less impressive potential ceilings of power and eye. That Delgado probably won't be a path I end up following. Is looking for $2.6 million though, so in a perfect scenario, it might be possible to layer in a guy like Delgado with another pretty solid prospect. Moving on to the 3 prospects that got a bit more support from the worldwide scouting department. Third baseman Diogo Jephthah Lebreau, the choice of Peter Hooper and Mike Byfield. Outstanding speed, like the adaptability, although we don't love the low baseball IQ. Guy who looks like he could be a respectable defensive infielder. Looks like he's more of a borderline capable corner outfielder in left field if we were to move him there. Has that profile that we've been talking about, that a lot of our other players do, potentially outstanding contact and world-class gap power, the home run power in the eye, both likely a bit below average, even if he peaks. Development risk is extreme. I would probably lean towards LeBreau over Delgado, just because, and we've talked about this in past episodes, the top prospects in our organization are heavily weighted towards outfielders right now. So I think there is an argument to, I don't want to say reach for an infielder, but in a year like this where we don't necessarily have an incredibly strong opinion on which way to go, perhaps going for someone who could play the infield would help balance out the lower levels of our minor league organization a little bit better. And then there are two other position players who were somewhat more popular with the worldwide scouting department. One is the second baseman, Rogerio Gumbo Castanina. He was the choice of Fluffy Dog 987, Charlie Alkshe, Zach Bartell, and Jonathan Fenn. Gumby Castahina is a pretty interesting prospect. Not the greatest defensive infield prospect. Is a guy that, similar to many others, could play a passable left field if we needed. Couple of positive traits for his development with that high adaptability in baseball IQ, and certainly an interesting bat for infielder. I think that his contact and his home run power could all be well above average. The gap power in the eye kind of more in that meh type range if he reaches his full potential. Do like that the development risk is only medium with him, and he does have, at least according to our scout, one of the highest potential ceilings of anyone in this pool. And the last player to talk about from the worldwide scouting department, another middle infielder, Dante Estrada. And Estrada was the choice of third degree Top Gun, Stanley Rosella, Nelson, Andrew Barnes, Jarek Braxton, and Jonathan Fenn. Estrada looks better defensively than even Castanina. Some pretty positive personality traits with a high loyalty, adaptability, and baseball IQ. The contact and the home run power for him are more in the average-ish range, but think that he could have a above average eye and potentially outstanding gap power to match with pretty good speed, although right now his base running and stealing instincts are not particularly adept. Also a good bunter, and another guy with medium development risk. Given that there's such a variety of personalities and a variety of skill sets and a variety of views from the worldwide scouting department, also kind of got the explicit recommendation from Avery Shayam, NS1 CLRK, and Christian Wilson that this might be a very good year to kind of spray the $5.23 million that we've got to spend around, not necessarily go with as high-end a prospect, and see if perhaps we can bring multiple players on board. And I think that that is a strategy that we will consider, but I still think want to try to bring one potential bigger fish on board. And although the view of the worldwide scouting department was certainly not overwhelming with any of these players, by a small margin, the most popular was Dante Estrada, and I think that's the guy that we're going to try to go after. At $2.6 million, he is looking for $800,000 less than Castanina. Pretty confident that Castanina ends up going for $4.75 million plus when all is said and done. Don't necessarily think that Estrada ends up in that range. So he may be a guy that if we put out a strong first bid can get him signed relatively quickly and then still have some money to chase after another player or two. Honestly, I don't love his bat quite as much as I like Castanina's, but as we talked about, it still could be a very solid bat for a middle infielder. And I like that his range rating is better. Overall, think he's a more interesting defensive infield prospect. He's got some very positive personality traits. He is a bit older at 17 and a half years old and has a lot to learn, but I think that's fair to say about most of these prospects. With the $2.6 million price tag, our thought with Estrada is that we're going to offer him a bit more than that, a little over 20% more to begin. If he signs that deal, great, and it'll leave us with about $2 million to potentially add a couple of other options. If he refuses our offer, this isn't a year where I feel like there's a pound-the-table guy, and maybe we pivot to a different strategy if he refuses us quickly, and that strategy could end up being spending a lot more money on a Castanina or one of the other position players, or perhaps even one of the pitchers, or it could be moving immediately to a more measured group where maybe we spend $1.5 million to $2 million on 3 or 4 guys this year. So we're going to make an offer of $3.15 million to Mr. Estrada. As I mentioned, a little more than 20% over what he's looking for. Maybe we can get him signed quickly, and then we'd still have a little over $2 million to pursue some other options with. And initial feedback from Estrada is encouraging, although supposedly the Braves, the Reds, and the Marlins are also interested in him. He gave us the typical response, unless someone offers me a better deal, I'll sign with you. So that certainly leaves him a lot of ways to come back to us and say that he's really not interested. Take a quick look at the Hall of Fame voting here in 2029. Miggy Cabrera, Zach Greinke, and Yadi Molina all inducted into the Hall of Fame. Among the guys who got the most votes who were not elected, Ryan Braun, Adam Wainwright, David Price, Joey Votto, Chase Utley, and Jimmy Rollins and John Lester all received between 20% and 50% of the vote this year. We've never actually made an offer to Woo Jin An, who is a player with an injury who is trying to come over from Korea. I don't know why he felt us the need to say that he's strongly leaning towards the Yankees, but I don't think I've ever... I definitely haven't made an offer with him, so seems like he is trying to aggressively market himself by claiming that we've got to top the Yankees offer, and he's not a fool. So we wish him good luck with whatever he decides, but I don't see how he would ever be a serious option for us this offseason, given his age and injury issues. And most importantly, we don't have anywhere near the money to spend that he's looking for. And those San Francisco Giants, busy in the real world in the trade market, busy in the fictional IAFA market here. They've made an offer to Estrada that he prefers. The OSA thinks Estrada is a much more dominant prospect than we do. I tend to think I'll agree with our scout on that. Looking for $4.4 million now, so he is definitely getting to that fully valued level, which means we probably should spend a little more time thinking about whether increasing our bid to Estrada makes sense or not. Unfortunately, a couple of guys that we talked about are already gone and may have completely miscalculated on Rogerio Castanina. Went for just $2.2 million for the Pirates organization. So clearly, if I had known we might be able to get him at that price, That would have been a very interesting way to go. Delgado also went for a relatively bargain price of 1.7 million, although as I talked about, given the number of outfielders we have in the organization with similar hitting profiles to his, I don't know how serious I really was about bringing him on board. But definitely disappointed that Castaneda is already gone, because he was a guy I would certainly have strongly considered pivoting to from Estrada. And now that means maybe the answer is to go bigger on Estrada at this point. But we could also go for more of a mix of lower priced players too. And that's definitely something to consider. And looking at the demands of some of the players who are out there, as you'd expect, some of them have increased dramatically quickly. We are going to pivot here to the pitcher, Jose Ramirez, and with that low baseball IQ, I know that NS1 CLRK, among others, are probably not fans with this pivot, but still think the potential skill set for the walking man with that incredible control potential is the most interesting of the pitchers out there. He's still claiming he wants only what he started looking for, so maybe there hasn't been a ton of interest in him thus far. We're going to actually go really cheap, try to damage his confidence, offer him $2.5 million, and maybe give ourselves the opportunity to build a more diverse class here. He's willing to think about it. Don't necessarily think we're going to get him lined up and signed for that number, but this does seem to be a year where maybe we try not to go and blow all our money in one place, although admittedly if Ramirez refuses this offer and Estrada is still on the market looking for $4.5 million or so after this, and there's a few more guys who have been signed by then, I could pivot back and end up trying to go big or go home. And simmed ahead a few days. The preseason starting tomorrow. Ramirez has given us some initial feedback that unless someone offers a better deal, he'll sign with us. So guessing that means someone probably going to offer him a better deal. Looks like the Nationals may also be involved at this point. And the preseason is ready to begin. We've started filling out the higher levels of our farm system with a few familiar names. Not necessarily thinking any of these guys are going to be big impact players for us, but do give us a little more flexibility at the upper levels of the organization. No change to our budget, $206 million available for this upcoming season. And unfortunately, the timing ends up horrible for us. The same day that Ramirez says that he's looking for around $4 million, Dante Estrada signs with Kansas City. He did go for $5.7 million, though, so there was no way we were going to get him. So that makes me feel a little less bad about having moved on from him. Now the question is, do we continue to engage with Ramirez, or do we pivot to a different plan? You can see a lot of the guys that we've talked about are off the market at this point. The only position player left that was recommended by anybody is Victor Merakin. Pitching-wise, still have both Ramirez and Perez on the market. I think at this point, I'll try to land Ramirez. Would love to give ourselves the opportunity to supplement him with somebody, and with Perez still being on the market, we're very borderline for being able to do that. But if we can get him locked up for $3.9 million, it's possible, if the market for Perez is not as great, that we might be able to get both of the pitchers. Now he's getting a bit, I don't think he really wants to sign with us, as he keeps asking for slightly more money. So the chance of bringing them both on board probably decreasing. $4.1 million, he claims, may get the job done. We'll see what happens with the walking man. May end up, if this doesn't work out, just pivoting to 4 or 5 players in this class, none of whom are the top-end prospects. But again, if there was a class to not necessarily go after a top-end prospect, it seems like this might have been the one, just because there weren't any perfect prospects in this pool, at least in my opinion. And we knew this would eventually be happening. Dustin May has signed. We get a supplemental first-round pick for his departure, so that's very positive. Looks like he probably got the type of contract he was ultimately hoping for. 6 years, just over $100 million, so making the QO to him hopefully will pay off, although we're going to have to find some more money in the budget to pay for a second first-round pick this year now. Fan interest will take a hit from his departure. 2-point hit by Dustin May moving on. And Ramirez, once again, unless someone offers him a better offer, claims that he will sign with us. And unfortunately, Mr. Ramirez is just a filthy liar. And now it's the Red Sox involved, which makes things even worse. Looking for $4.96 million at this point. I do think he's the best pitching prospect out there, but he definitely has his holes. Don't love the low baseball IQ. Definitely going to need both that changeup and the knuckle curve to go from nothing to pretty proficient major league pitches to be useful to us, at least in terms of him being a starter. So I think it's time to go for a more measured approach and start perhaps spraying some of this money around a little bit. I noted that I don't love Perez as much as I like Ramirez. That said, 2 respected members of the Worldwide Scouting Department, the Rickety Bridge and NS1 CLRK, both like him. Do like some of the personality traits, and he's not looking for a ton of money. Says he's looking for $1.6 million. We'll get an offer for that out to him, but he's being a filthy liar also and saying he wants more money, so maybe we're not going to offer it to him. You're making me reconsider my options here, Mr. Perez. And we are going to try to make at least one offer to a guy whose original demand was $1.3 million. That's the third baseman, Jose Garcia. Not necessarily an ideal defensive infielder, but could have a pretty interesting bat with potentially outstanding power. Although the price on him is going up as well to almost $3.9 million. So that's disappointing to see. The catcher, Adri Lumen, switch hitter, decent defensively with what could be a nice bat for a catcher. He's looking for big money as well. So I'm actually seeing some of the price tags on these other players. I'm going to give one more shot to the walking man, Ramirez. I do, as I say, like him a little more than Perez, even though he's definitely got a lot of potential holes in his game as well. But anytime we can get what the Red Sox want and potentially try to hurt them, I'm willing to do it. We'll offer him $5 million and see what happens. And Jose Ramirez now looking for even more. Says he's got $5.2 million from the Angels. We just offered him $5 million. I have looked offline at the options to try to get more cash. This seems like a horrible year to try to get more cash since I really didn't love the pool. But if we offered him $5 million, might as well see if we can lock him up with every penny that we have. He was and is one of my favorite players in this pool, but I can't lie. I don't love this pool of IAFA players to begin with, and certainly think that if I had played things differently, going with the quantity rather than quality was the thing to do this year. The big, you know, thing that I regret, and it was a choice that we made, we went with Estrada as our top choice rather than Castanina. And clearly it looks like Castanina was more willing to sign quickly for a very reasonable amount, at least with the Pirates. And if we had decided to go with Castanina instead of Estrada, it's possible that we'd be in a very different situation right now. But it is what it is. And as we move to the month of February, get closer to the start of spring training and hopefully a resolution to this IAFA period, not a lot of great news. A lot of our major league pitchers generally looking like they are coming into and heading towards spring training, not quite the players that they were last year. So apparently they haven't been taking incredible care of themselves over this winter, and in their late 20s and early 30s, a lot of them just starting to regress a bit in terms of the physical skills that they bring to the table. And we did get the pitching prospect, Jose Ramirez, signed, $5.23 million, so we spent every penny we had on him. Definitely recognize some of the concerns. To get to 3 pitches, he's got a lot of work to do. He's not all that smart, but the ceiling on him is a very interesting major league pitcher. If he truly reaches his ceiling with 55 stuff, 60 movement, 75 control, throwing close to 100 miles an hour with well above average stamina and ability to hold on runners, he's a very good major league pitcher, arguably an ace, certainly an outstanding number 2 if he reaches his full potential. Now, the odds of any of these prospects reaching their full potential, certainly not great. But we'll try to put him in a good situation in the organization and develop him, along with Estrada and Castanina. Ramirez was one of my 3 favorites, although honestly did prefer the infielders Estrada and Castanina to him. Didn't think I was necessarily going to end up spending all of our money in one place this offseason, but ended up being with the guy who was my 3rd choice and also ultimately the 3rd choice of the worldwide scouting department. So perhaps that's a sign that in the NL West this year we're going to finish 3rd in the division. And before we finish this episode off, we'll take a quick look at the development lab. Another 2 or 3 weeks remaining there. Got until right after the start of spring training when we'll find out how those trips through the development lab go. Right now, not particularly great. Ryan Stone, last year's 1st-round pick, and Charlie Condon, previously one of the top prospects in the organization who we're trying to salvage, both doing a good job and on track with their quality of contact programs. Unfortunately, everybody else is frustrated, from Marcelo Meyer, Caleb Lomavita, to some of the prospects in the organization, Trent Clausen, Kevin Roberts Jr., P. Vidi Contreras, and Pinky Santos. So hopefully we'll get more than 2 successful programs. It does look like Pinky Santos is not too far off from being on track. Positive from when we checked in last. At least it doesn't look like Contreras is completely struggling now, although very borderline to just get too frustrated from struggling for the top prospect in our organization. And with that, we'll call it an episode. Next time around, we will find out what actually happened in the development lab as we get started with spring training, see if there's any other interesting options still available on the market. Guess it can't hurt to take a look at the free agents who are still available here, the pitchers who are available, getting to be a much less interesting crew. but certainly some guys who could potentially help us. Our buddy Feltner is still out there. He's not even looking for a major league contract anymore. I think certainly have to offer him a minor league contract to try to reunite with him. As far as the hitters, definitely not any real impact players either out there, although 32-year-old Ozzie Albies looking like he's just looking for the ability to go to a camp at this point, so certainly we'll put an offer out to him as well. So would expect that we still keep trying to bolster the upper levels of the organization a bit. Only 50 guys right now between AA and AAA, so probably would like to add a few more players into the mix there to hopefully have those teams a little more well-stocked, although presumably there's going to be a few guys who are no longer eligible in high A ball that will end up needing to either release or promote when we do get to the beginning of the season. But we will focus on all of that in our next episode. Did mention that we're going to need to increase the draft budget, and unfortunately, that's going to really limit what we can potentially do in free agency. But we made the offer to Dustin May specifically, so if he declined that QO, we'd be able to bring him back. So certainly want to make sure that we can bring on board the player that we end up picking with that supplemental first-round pick. But certainly increasing the budget for that leaves us almost no financial flexibility at this point, unless we choose to perhaps cut down on our scouting or player development budgets before the start of the season. But they're already going to be lower than they were a year ago, and given that we do have a pretty highly regarded farm system that ranks 7th overall, want to try to ensure that we continue to invest pretty responsibly in player development at this point, even if it's not at that $35 to $40 million level that we'd like to be at in a perfect world. But as we know, we are the fictional general manager of the Rockies, and things are definitely not perfect. And we'll find out how spring training goes and who ends up making the roster for the 2029 season in our next episode. Until then, thanks so much for watching, and hope you have a great day.